Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Respecting the Beer. I'm producer Dave, and we're back to our conversation with Jamil Zainasheff. Let's dive right in. Enjoy the episode.
You absolutely should open a brewery. What? And Bobby, I'm interested in your take on this too. What was the moment that both of you said, "Okay, I'm ready to move from accomplished home brewer to owning my own establishment"?
Well, now,
So let Jamil answer that.
yeah, you say confidence. Maybe stupidity is a better
Ignorance.
Ignorance is a big portion of it. You got to have the right amount of, knowledge and confidence, and then, a good chunk of ignorance allows you to move forward on something, maybe you shouldn't. I had been working in software for, I don't know, up until 2009. I was working for Macromedia and then Adobe, and then left them in 2009. And then I wrote the yeast book with Chris White, 2009. And it was nearing the end, and my wife was like, what are you going to do for a job now? You can't just write, brewing books. It's not going to be enough of an income. And here I was envisioning myself, just writing brewing books. And she's like, "No, you're not going to be sitting on the couch writing brewing books. Get a job." And I don't want to go back to software. Acquaintance of mine, he had a brewery building, but just could not finish assembling his brewery and getting it going. And I said, "I'll come in and do a lot of the last bits for you if we can share the brewery." And so that's how I got started. I held my initial investment down quite low by doing that. I mean, I still had to buy fermenters and, a lot of other stuff, but I did not have to buy a brew plant. I just had to get the one that was there up and running. So, my wife pressured me into it. So I say it's my wife's fault. It's my wife's fault because she gave me a Mr. Beer kit. It's my wife's fault because she pressured me into open a brewery. So it's all Mrs.
Bobby,
fault.
would you like to adopt that same answer?
I think that would be fair. Yeah, I think that's a good answer.
You're going to blame Allison.
I'm going to blame Allison. We rarely
Note
do hear
to the
that.
audience, Allison is not here.
That answer
Right.
is usually opposite of that. You do it in spite of, not because of that. Your significant other. That's a special person. I poured beer next to her at a beer fest under the bridge there in Davis. In 2013.
Wow.
And she also hand wrote me a letter because I think I may have emailed for a sticker when you opened Heretic. And she hand wrote me a letter and put a few stickers in an envelope. I will never forget it. I still have it. I thought, man, that's a personal touch. That was something.
Well, yeah, we always believed in, if anybody ever asked for stickers and stuff like that, we just sent them to them because, it depends. You get a lot of ones from, like Poland or Russia or stuff that seem kind of sketchy, but
right.
all the ones that, with stamps and everything, it's like, yep, you got it.
I got a million bullets on my sheet, and I don't know how much time we got, but I just want to say that you're one of the most pragmatic brewers out there, and you call bullshit everywhere you see it. I always appreciated that. You going through Brew Strong and you giving answers thoughtfully and just barreling right through any dogma that existed out there. That's just a comment. I just wanted to compliment you on that, and then I wanted to bring up something. So Mitch Steele was on our show a few months ago.
I love
and
Mitch.
I just heard that Mitch is, I guess, will we call him retired or will we call him? What are we going to call him now? I know that he's looking for some hobbies these days, however big they become.
I don't know that he's retired. I think he's just transitioning to, another part of the industry that he loves so much. And brewing
Yeah.
beer.
Is that the teaching guitar to Joel and Bobby industry? Is that
guitar
what?
teaching. That's right.
Okay.
To all beer
Excellent.
enthusiasts.
Yeah, that Mitch is such a wonderful person. I
He
love
is.
him. I've always said he's nicer than Jesus, and
That's I only have him to compare to, so I only have
he
one of the two.
he is a wonderful guy, just absolutely wonderful.
I bring it up because of Evil 3, and I brought it up with Mitch too. I said, "Is that going to happen someday again?" And I don't know. I just keep floating this idea because I feel like it should happen again in honor of Tasty McDole, or just because you guys are legends, and I kind of want to open our doors to that possible collaboration at some point, or if I can connect with anyone that would be interested. But I think I speak from the industry, the heart of the industry, in recognizing what you guys have done. And that beer was such a cool one. The union of you guys was kind of a traveling Wilburys moment, if you will. Right? You guys together.
Yeah, we brewed it in. Yeah, unfortunately, I had to sell the brewery because my health was just not allowing it.
And you gave us a tour, by the way. Thank you. My wife and I dropped in on you one day, and you were buried in your laptop, 2013, fighting with all the things that brewers fight with. But yeah, you won't remember that because you probably did that every day of the week.
Oh, if you asked me, yeah, it's a weird thing is people go, oh, I wrote you once, and you answered me back, really detailed and helped me with the brewing question, but my name is, and I'm like, well, what was your question? And they're like,
Right.
well, I asked about that. I'm like, oh yeah, and I told you this, that, and the other thing. It's like I can't remember people very well, but I remember brewing questions and the answers I gave. So, which is really quite odd.
I was probably asking something about the explosion proofing of your mill at some point.
Oh yeah, I probably went into an hour's diatribe about the strip curtains and the seeing a light bulb, 25-watt light bulb, at a certain distance, and
remember, he's obsessed. This guy.
Oh yeah.
You learn so many things, doing a brewery. But I want to say about Evil 3, yeah, Mitch and I and Andrew went out to England and brewed Evil 3 there. Well, we brewed it virtually via like Zoom or whatever with a brewery in Worthing called Hand Brewing in England. And then we went over there for the release party, all of us. It was a blast. And we're going to brew it again it's not Evil 3, but we're going to, Mitch and Lee McDole, Tasty's son, and myself and Andrew, we're all getting together to brew a batch of triple IPA here in January and have some fun with it.
That's awesome.
So Bobby and I should be out there early March then to give it a taste. Is that the timeline?
Right. I always released it on the day before Super Bowl, the Saturday before Super Bowl, because
we will be out there.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I don't know when they're gonna have the beer ready to go, but I can let you know it's probably gonna be brewing January 7th, I want to say. So probably it'll be right about that time, right in time for Super Bowl.
So speaking of collaborations and doing that overseas, do you want to talk a little bit about what you've done with Fuller's?
Yeah. Did you know John Keeling from Fuller's? I'm sure you do because you went over there, I think, when he was still there.
Yeah, another wonderful person in the brewing industry.
Yeah, he did a podcast with me in 2019 or 2020, and we never have met, he and I, but we know we love cask ale. We knew we fell in love we fell in love with cask independently, and then met each other on a podcast and decided we wanted to collaborate at some point. All these years later, we finally did this year. I did a party guile on our system here based on some of his notes, and came out great. People love it. We have a ESB and a bitter out of that based on London Pride and ESB. I'm sorry, the Chiswick's bitter and the ESB. I was drinking that when we started this interview because I know that you're also a big fan of the pub and the hand pumps and
Oh
so
yeah,
forth and so on.
that's the only thing
But
I
yeah,
brew at home now.
I love it. Yeah, and I know that you were endorsing a book recently on the subject of pubs in the UK, or maybe you're a
Oh yeah,
co-author of it, or
that was
yeah,
the camera guide to good pubs is
yeah,
a
yeah.
valuable resource. But I did a book called The Modern Homebrewer with a buddy of mine, Andy, over in the UK. He is one of the owners of. Oh, well, why am I drawing a
That
blank?
title is ringing a bell for me.
Yeah, Modern
I
Homebrewer. We just came out with it.
Yeah,
Just won some sort of award for that as well. And Camera was the publisher of that. I did it right before I got sick. I got sick last November, nearly died, and it took me about 8 months to even be able to email since then.
jeez.
But yeah, John Keeling, another wonderful person, and he's another one of those folks that will tell you absolutely everything he knows. Doesn't hold anything back, recipes, anything. He will share all the information he has because he understands it's you can give somebody all the information in the world, but unless they have the ability to implement it, it's still not going to be, and it's not, other people brewing great beer is not a threat to you or your ability to make great beer. Matter of fact, it's the opposite. It helps you make great beer because there's better ingredients available, more information available. So I've never been shy about sharing information. Yeah, the collabs at Fuller's, I was there in doing a tour of Fuller's. I had never done a tour of Fuller's. And I was in England with a buddy of mine, Travis Comble, and he's like, well, we should do the Fuller's tour. He had already done it before. And I'm like, yeah, I've never done it for some reason. I'd love to do the tour. So we signed up for the regular old tour everybody signs up for. And we were going through, and somebody figured out that I guess I had, some notoriety in the brewing world. And one of their brewers there, Henry Kirk, saw me and said, yeah, I've got your yeast book. And, he's like, let me give you a more private tour. And he took us around, in all the little nooks and crannies that you don't go to on the normal tour. We're crawling through tunnels and everything. Like I do with a lot of people that I get along with, I say, hey, if you're ever out in California, let me know. I can take you around. You can stay at my place. And he goes, okay, I'll be there Tuesday. And I thought he was joking. He goes, no, I'm literally going to be there on Tuesday. I'm going to this thing at Sierra Nevada. I could stop by and see you. And so he came, he stayed at my place, and I took him around to a bunch of different things with some other people from Sweden that just coincidentally happened to be there. And Henry and I hit it off big time. And so we started talking about doing this beer at Fuller's. And John Keeling wanted to do a Goza. And, Henry's like, Goza? I'm like, yeah, Goza, sure. And I think the board for Fuller's kind of lost their mind when they heard that, we were going to be souring a beer at Fuller's. And so I bought my plane tickets like immediately. And I was like, I have my hotel booked, everything. I'm like, I'm ready for this. And so the board's like, no, we're not going to do this. Or, some people are like, we're not going to do this. And I guess John and Henry was like, yeah, he already bought his tickets. What, are we going to turn him away? We told him we would do it. So I went out there and brewed like 250 hectoliters of Goza. We soured it in their kettles there. We had to come up with whole new ways of doing things there because the system was not ever meant to do something like that. There's a lot of automation and how things flow, and the computer tracks that. So
I think you talked about it on Brew Strong, maybe one of the episodes.
yeah, it was a blast. The only thing was, I knew they wouldn't add enough fruit.
Yeah.
It was blackcurrant or blackberry goza, and I'm just like, you got to add a lot of fruit. And when it got to market, it was just really subtle. I'm like, but we did that, and it was a great experience. Yeah, and I don't know how much time you have for all my stupid stories, but one of my favorite ones is partway through. This is like the second day of this because we had to sour it overnight. So I'm there multiple days, and Henry's having me do stuff like clean, things, and change.
Was this a photo op kind of a collaboration?
Yeah, no, it wasn't that, which I hate those. I like the ones where you're actually involved. But he's like, hey, all the brewers need to go to this, collaboration meeting. We're doing like a 6-pack of collaborations, and, each brewer is taking, one of the beers. So we'll all have to go to this meeting. He's like, can you watch the brewery? And I'm like, sure. And
we're talking about Fuller's Brewing Company.
Yeah, it wasn't even a commercial brewer at this point, I think. And he goes, you know what you're doing. And he goes, kettle 2 needs cleaning, and then, just keep an eye on everything else. And so I went and cleaned this 250 hectoliter kettle, which, there's tricks to it, and it's got all these special baffles in the bottom. But I did that, and then I was sitting in the brewer's office just looking at the screens and trying to figure out what was going on. And somebody came in, and they were just like, 44. I'm like, okay. So I just wrote down 44 on a scrap of paper. I figured I'd tell Henry when he got back. And then I assumed it was the gravity for Pride, and which it was. And while I'm there, this tour comes through, and there's a whole bunch of people, and like I wave. I'm in the brewer's booth wearing a Fuller's high vis, and I'm like waving. All these people are taking pictures. I'm like, all right. So somewhere out there in somebody's Instagram feed is me going like, oh, took a tour of Fuller's, and here's a picture of the brewer, and it's me. So I always thought that was hilarious.
Slept at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Yeah, exactly. Told Henry when he came back, he was just cracking up. He loved it.
Jamil, can I ask you to comment to a couple of your more famous quotes?
Okay.
You have famous quotes, by the way.
I there's a few.
Okay.
Come to mind.
One of your ones that I really identify with is ordinary beer is boring. Don't drink it. What are your thoughts on that quote?
And what does it mean?
Well,
and why does it apply to Gary?
if there's, there's okay. So there's, let's say you're a really avid reader. There are 50 back when I learned this fact, which is quite a while ago. So there were 50,000 books published every year on average. And
my wife might read all of them.
Right. The thing is, no matter how fast you read, you can't read 50,000 books in a lifetime. And so all these new books are being created. If you end up wasting time on reading something that really isn't good or something you don't vastly enjoy, I tell my wife this. She's like, oh, I got to finish this. It's not very good, but I got to finish it. I'm like, just drop it and start something else that you do enjoy. because there's, it's like trying to watch everything on Netflix, right? You can't catch up because they come out with new stuff all the time. There's just not enough hours in your lifetime to do it. Same thing on beers. There's so many beers that are produced that if the beer you're drinking is not great, set it aside, get something else. I got friends who are just like, well, I ordered it, I'm gonna drink it. I'm like, but you don't like it. No, it's not very good. I'm like, well, then pour it out and get something else. I always had the rule at my place that if somebody didn't like something, no questions asked. Dump it, get them something else, no charge. But you can't waste time drinking beer that doesn't give you some sort of thrill. Other than just the alcohol aspect of it. Why are you drinking the beer? If it doesn't give you some sort of wow, that's a great, hop character. Oh wow, look how beautiful it is. Look at the foam stand. Look at the clarity. Look at the color. Look at feel that mouth feel in this. Something special about the beer that really makes it a special experience. Because just ordinary, boring stuff. There's not enough time in life to waste on things like that. What did the quote mean to you?
Well, I would interpret it exactly the way you did. My good friend Christoph and we have a rule when we're drinking beer: life's too short for a bad beer.
Yeah,
and it's basically
great rule.
kind of verbatim to what you described.
Mm-hmm.
We'll periodically bring over a new beer, and if it's no good, we just dump it. Like there's no
Okay.
there's no time for it. We know what we like, and Gary refers to me as parochial as a result. But there's no time for frittering about and wasting time.
Mm-hmm.
And any good brewer would like to know you do that too. We don't want you to drink
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
you don't want.
And I'm not going to list some of the
Yeah.
breweries that I've just dumped, but it's a
I think that's true in like anything in life.
it is.
I've walked out of movies that were bad. It's like I'm not going to waste another hour of my life with this.
Right. Yeah. So no, I to me that quote resonated because ever since, and we just were able to speak to him 2 weeks ago, but when we talked to Ken Grossman at Sierra Nevada, I mean, when I had my first Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, I knew that I would never be able to drink a domestic beer with any level of sincerity at that point moving forward. I was like, okay, well, this is it. The bar has been set. The bar has been raised. This is the new standard. This is the new expectation, and I can't go back. So to me, your quote kind of resonated with me about that.
What was the second quote?
The second quote was in relationship to how you wanted patrons at Heretic to be treated. And I quote, treat everyone like they are the most important person in the tap room. And I'm interested in your thoughts on that because that is also my perspective when I'm in the tap room at McFleshman's, that I do my best. And, everybody has a bad day from time to time, but I do my best to make everybody feel like they're really important. And I think part of that philosophy comes from my teaching experience. I've been a teacher now for 28 years, and my goal is to make every day an important one. I only get 180 shots to make a difference. So when somebody comes into the tap room, I really want them to feel special. So I wanted to get your take on that quote as well.
Yeah, I just think it's good business to treat people that way if you want to have a successful business. But if you're going to take somebody's money, it's the least thing you can do is treat them like they're that they're important. I don't know. And there's a joy you get from it too. I bet you when you're dealing with a customer and you take the time to figure out what they'll enjoy, or to talk to them about what they enjoy or what they don't enjoy, and their options, and help walk them through it. And then they're just like, wow, this is fantastic. Thank you. It's there's something about that.
There's a rush to it. There really is.
Yeah. It's like, it's just making somebody's day. If you can make somebody's day, that's a special thing. So
Because if you can't be happy at a brewery, I mean, we may have a bigger issue.
yeah.
I mean, at McFleshman's, we're surrounded by great beers. If I can't bring a smile to people here, I probably have an issue.
Well, and that's the way you bring business, repeat business as well. You make a place that people enjoy. They feel like they're treated well, and that, it's worth their time to come down, and, it kind of makes their day.
And before I ask him our final question, I want to make sure that you've gotten a chance to empty your list of questions.
I was just going to say, if you ever get out and you start touring again to all the homebrew clubs and breweries and so on and so on, stop by here. We have an open fermenter. We do cask ale. We do beer engines. We also, on the other side of that, we do decoctions on a Czech brewing system. We have a 12-year now sour program. Our Flanders is based partially on Jamil's recipe, but I mean, just by nature of the beast, right? You inevitably have had an impact on all these brewers, including myself, but we're traditionally focused, and I think you'd appreciate what we built here. You got to come see what we do if you make it up here. And if you make it to England, I'd like to get a pint with you there someday too. See one of those great pubs that you could probably recommend.
Yeah, I'd love to come out and see you guys. Hard to say when I'll be traveling again, but if I can, I certainly will. I've been talking about.
If I could recommend a day of the week, I would come on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
You want to embellish that?
Well, I mean, I just know somebody behind the bar on Wednesday who would really love to have you.
Yeah.
I will just note that if you look at a map of the United States, the most bars per capita, Wisconsin crushes everyone else. And then if you look at a map of the state of Wisconsin of what county has the most bars per capita, we are at ground zero in the United States for drinking.
They've leaned into this statistic.
I mean, I don't know if it's something to be worried about or to be proud of, but
Pride.
Yeah, it is what it is.
I could hit a 9-iron, and I hit a pretty long 9-iron, probably 160. I could hit a 9-iron to 15 bars.
And I watched a Czech brewer give a talk, and he was bragging about how much they drink in the Czech Republic. And I stood up to ask a question, but before that, I challenged his statistic about how they drink more than anyone in the world. And I said, if Wisconsin were a country, they would be number 2. And it drew a laugh. And there was a joke or question, but it didn't matter. That was what the attention was drawn to. All right, Joel, ready for your big question now.
Okay, this is always our final question. This has been the final question for John Keeling. This has been the final question for Ken Grossman. And I want to make sure you're ready. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right. So, the Mount Rushmore of brewing per Jamil is who?
Oh,
now Mount Rushmore only has 4 people. I may remind you of.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. That is such a.
He's got a lot of friends in the industry. This is not fair.
This isn't fair.
Right.
Mitch Steele, this question too. We're going to ask Vinny in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vinny would be a good one. Mitch would be a good one. Ken Grossman would be a good one. Good ones. Davis, Michael Lewis, Charlie Bamforth.
Oh man, you're hitting all the high notes right here.
England, John Keeling, Michael Jackson, Charlie Papazian.
See, that's always mine. He is 100% on mine. And when I've asked people about this, like even Ken Grossman is like, oh yeah, okay, well,
he said that if he were more commercially
Yeah.
an influence,
Yeah.
then he would be on there.
but in
Yeah.
terms of, and that's why, Jamil, to me, you and Charlie are kind of in this universe of people that have just inspired, homebrewers and people to pick up their mash paddle and to take on the challenge of doing it. Charlie with his role in the Homebrewers Association. To me, he's on mine in American brewing. He's on mine. But this isn't my list, it's yours. So you got to come up with 4. You gave me like 12 so far.
So I've come up with at least 4. There you go. Let me tell you a story about Charlie Papazian. Back when I was really just starting out, I went to my very first homebrewers conference, and that was I think it was in Houston, or it was somewhere in Texas. And the conference was 150 people or so. And Charlie used to go around and sit in the various talks and stuff like that. And I remember, chatting with him once and telling him about, how much I enjoyed his writing and, all the stuff he did to get the Homebrewers Association going. And he was just super nice and said, such nice things to me and was so encouraging. It stuck with me always. And, every time I saw him, he was just the most generous with his time. And I remember when I met, I'd seen Michael Jackson, give talks and stuff, but we were at a conference in San Diego. I'm not sure if it was commercial or I think it was homebrew. And I saw Charlie, and he's like, sit down with Michael Jackson and chat with him for a while. And Michael Jackson had Parkinson's, and it was a real struggle for him there at the end, and a lot of times, so I don't know. I sat with him and we chatted about journalism, not beer, journalism, and that was just a really wonderful experience. And again, Charlie was part of that. He's like, here, you two get together and chat. And that's one of the reasons I'd put Charlie on that Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore just needs to be bigger.
And he's Armenian, Gary, just like me.
There's
Armenians,
there's
Share,
friendly,
you,
right? Me, shared,
the
Jerry
Kardashians.
Tarkanian,
there's just
Kim Kardashian.
There's just too many great people in brewing. It's the reason I love brewing.
So you've got one so far. You've got Charlie Papazian.
He's going to make so many wonderful people that are so kind and generous, and they, it's one of those things where, beer by yourself can be really good, but it can only truly be great when it's shared with other people and you experience it together, I think.
And John Keeling said that that's the only way to have beer. He's all about community.
Yeah. John's a great guy too.
I only drink beer in the presence of Joel.
Wow, that is quite an honor.
I think Jamil's gonna wiggle out of.
He is.
I gave you like 12. How many more
right,
do you
but
really
there's
need?
only 4. There's only room for 4. I will point out that just several weeks ago, Ken Grossman put himself on the Mount Rushmore, and I insisted. You insisted. Like, he has to be on there. There's 2. We have 2.
Yeah,
Ken Grossman is a giant.
Yeah,
a giant.
I think people like Greg Cook, Steve Wagner, and they changed the beer scene with stone brewing. I think that was a significant impact.
Is Greg Cook off the grid now? Is he touring in a band, or what's going on?
I haven't talked to him in a while, so I don't know. But
I just want to know where his hair is these days.
Yeah, and he had been wearing his hair short, and I hadn't seen him in quite some time. And then we were at the airport in Denver or something, and somebody came up and started talking to me. Really long hair all around, entire head, just like, covered, completely covered. And I think Tasty was there, and he realized I didn't recognize Greg Cook, and he goes, "Yeah, Greg." I'm like, "Oh!" He's like, afterwards, he was like, "I could tell you didn't know who you were talking to." I'm like, "Thanks." I need a bag man that'll stand next to me and tell me who I'm talking to.
All right. Before we leave, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you online?
Oh, you can just email me at jzainasheff@gmail.com. It's my personal email address. Letter J. You got to be able to spell Zainasheff. That keeps a lot of people from contacting me. Or I think like, on the social things, it's like either my name or it'll be Mr. Malty. And the Brewing Network, there's still shows. I mean, I got sick and couldn't do shows for quite a while, so my buddy Travis took over and handled it for a while there. I don't know what else.
And if people are looking to get into home brewing, what book of yours should they look for?
How to Brew by John Palmer.
Right?
Right?
I always recommend How to Brew by John Palmer. I still think there's a great value to the Joy of Homebrewing by Papazian.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of people, I think I might recommend they read that one first. Because it kind of talks about the experience of brewing and gets you into it without worrying too much.
It's so DIY too. The yellow pages and the black and white images on those old copies.
Yeah.
I love that.
And then John's book is fantastic. How to Brew. It's got a lot of information in it. I think it's very information dense. So I don't want people to be frightened of brewing and think it's too complex. But when you have questions, that's a great book. Another one of my favorites early on was Designing Great Beers, Ray Daniels, and the George Fix books. Those are fantastic.
Yeah,
chemistry taught me a lot. Yeah. George Fix. Oh man, I'd put George Fix up on the Mount Rushmore.
There you go.
Personal.
We're up to 15 now.
18 names on there. Yeah.
And then
how about IPA brewing techniques by your good old friend Mitch Steele?
Yeah. Scott Janish did a really interesting job with the IPAs and modern IPA information. A lot of great books. The Brewing Classic Styles is really, I think, a great source of recipes because it's all by essentially one person. They're all proven in competition. When there was multiple recipes, I always went with the one that won the most awards, whether or not I thought that was the greatest, style example. I thought, I wanted to give people the good stuff that, and that they could trust. So it was consistent. If you need to make a change to one recipe, then you'd probably make them to all, and then the yeast book, I think there's a lot of great information in that. I'm really proud of all the work I did in that, but it's just a lot of people find it a little they consume it in bits. There's a lot of good information there. I don't know, a lot of people that just read it cover to cover, and
I never did that. Except I did, but the water book was hard. I couldn't do the water book.
Water book is very dry. Yeah.
No pun.
Which is ironic.
No irony there.
And then the modern homebrewer book that I just completed with Andy of Elusive Brewing.
Okay.
That's got a lot of modern information in it. It's kind of and it covers ingredients and equipment and techniques and things like that, and I think it's pretty good for that's another one where you're interested in a certain subject, you can just pick it up and jump right in there. You don't have to read it from the beginning or anything like that. So I think that's a good handy book for people. Yeah. Really proud of all the BYO articles I wrote and for Brew Your Own magazine, because they started just letting me write as much as I wanted on stuff. So I got to get into more detail, like dry stouts. You can't just, give people Guinness as a recipe or as a description of dry stout. You got to do the Murphys and the Beamish. So I did all three in the article and explained the differences and gave 3 different recipes so you could brew any one of those, kind of clone-ish versions of those 3 stouts. So I really liked that. I thought that was great. So back issues of BYO are a great thing too.
Yeah, we're definitely selling you short. You're prolific for sure.
All right. Well, that'll conclude this episode of Respecting the Beer. The producer of Respecting the Beer is David Kelso. Without David, there would not be a show. Please join the Facebook group to get updates and to support the show over on Patreon, where you can listen to the bits that don't make it onto the show and get access to special events here at McFleshman's, available only to Patreon and Pub Club members. Links to both of these are in the show notes. Till next time, please remember to respect the beer.